Hello soccer fans. Thanks to my daily life and my personal life, and in the game dedicating myself only to the Under-21 World Cup, I haven't made videos since then. Now that I'm freer to be able to make videos for the soccer community, let's talk about subjects that interest us, the game itself. I believe that a lot of people have been waiting for the promised news from the developers for a long time, but thinking about changes that will be very positive in the future and that in my opinion are necessary. I will explain why I believe these changes have to be made, using as an argument, for example, the real life. I don't know about programming, and this is a subject that I won't discuss, so if the developers are taking time to make really significant changes to the way soccer is played, it's because they are changes that take time, and I believe that the changes I'm going to say most would take a while to be put into practice, but in my opinion these are ideas that would make the game more complete and fun to play, because I don't understand programming, but I study football because I want to be a football coach in real life, so I hope my knowledge can help developers improve this game I love so much. So here it is, 5 things Sokker Manager needs to focus on to make a better game. Number 1. The Tactics Editor. One of the things that makes soccer so interesting and different from other games is its tactics editor. Having the freedom to place the player where you want according to the positioning of the ball on the field is really a very good thing. But the tactics editor of game doesn't give you 100% freedom and doesn't respect 2 important things of football when creating a strategy. Football has 2 phases, which we technically call phase with possession and phase without possession, or basically, the offensive phase, with the ball, and the defensive phase, without the ball. In real football, when a team loses the ball, the first thing they do is execute the defensive phase that is ordered by the coach, and the soccer this doesn't happen because these 2 phases are included at the same time in the tactic editor. So basically, to have a balance between the 2 sides, the normal thing that is done in the game is to divide these 2 phases using the center of the field, and thanks to that, something very irritating happens in the game where the players are going back and forth when the ball moves, and that only happens thanks to the way the tactics editor was made. And I believe that before thinking about making any changes in the game engine, it won't change much if the tactics editor remains the same, so my solution would be the tactic when it is created or edited, having 2 options to modify. An option focusing on the team having possession and the another option focusing on the team without possession. With that will be possible to think about defense and offense in the entire pitch, and not only in just 2 parts of the field, so the 2 phases of football that are carried out in real life would be perfectly performed. This would allow for a much more fluid start of attack creation from the defenders, and also the option to make the strikers be able to put pressure on the defense when they have the ball. And not only that, instead of just having the 10 classic players in the tactic editor, why not add the goalie as well? Unlike 2004, we are already in 2022 and a lot in football has happened since then. With the goalkeeper included in the tactics editor, it could be made a function that is performed in real life, which is the function of the sweeper keeper, so it would also be better using those goalkeepers that exist in the game with a very high level of passing that can be useful not only to pass correctly in a goal kick, but also as a means of organizing the beginning of an attack in the phase in which the team has possession. For me, modifying the tactics editor would be my top priority if I was a game developer in soccer, and I would love for this to be introduced. That's why I talk first this one. Let's go to the number 2, which would be a complement to number 1. Number 2. Individual orders. If you thought like me, the first idea would create the possibility of creating formations similar to those used in the real life, and could create the possibility of using perhaps wing backs that could advance and thus help the team offensively also close to the last third of the field. This second idea would practically make it happen, and with a giant freedom, as it would give the freedom to want each player in our team to act. If you've ever had the curiosity to tactically analyze some real-life club, you must have realized that each player has a tactical function, and for example in a 4-3-3, the 2 wingers sometimes do not have similar functions. Everything will depend on their strengths and weaknesses of these players. Obviously, individual orders would be something limited and simple to do without creating a difficulty, because we have to think that the tactics editor already gives us the idea of moving these players as we want in the field off ball, so the individual orders have to be in what is really missing, which would be on ball. The individual orders I would make would be about passing the ball dribbling and shooting, and I would put 3 options for each, which would be low, medium and high, and obviously how well they would be executed would depend on many factors like the skills of the players or their tactical discipline, for example, his form and etc. And that would be for all players, from the goalkeeper to the last player in the bench, so it would give countless ideas on how to use your team, making the game more realistic and fun. Number 3. Upgrades in the match orders. In my opinion, the options we have in the match orders are very few, and they could be bigger, to creating greater dynamics for the games, starting with the number of tactics that can be used in a game. In my opinion, 2 tactics is a very low number. The minimum, in my opinion, it had to be 4 tactics that could be used per game, for example the basic tactic, an additional tactic to use a different formation, and 2 more slots thinking, for example, of a more defensive tactic focusing on protecting yourself and avoiding taking a goal to guarantee the result in the last few 10 minutes, or the opposite with a much more offensive tactic thinking about trying to score the goal at all costs in the last 10 minutes and etc. The options with 4 tactics to use are almost infinite with so many ideas that could be executed. Another thing is that we have that starting to update the rules of football and soccer. 3 substitutions is something of the past. It is already permanent 5 substitutions per game, and besides that, just having 5 players in the bench is another thing that you couldn't do other. If you have the option of 5 substitutions, at least 8 players will have to be placed per bench. More substitutions means more ideas to do in a game, and thus be able to make a positive result. Number 4. Junior schools. When I read the news about a possible change in the way junior schools are worked, although I think it is a positive change and going in the right direction, it is still an incomplete idea and needs improvement. So I will not focus here on how the evolution of the player in the junior schools and etc., but in the mechanics of making the matches in the junior league be really interesting and not something boring and random as it is today, and about looking for players from other countries. That is a request that users ask for, including those that focus on the part of national teams in this game. First of all, players who are part of the junior school need us to know their skills before they turn pro. I will explain why in a simple way using real football as an example. Real-life football doesn't have 8 types of skill like Sokker Manager, but it has other factors that make a measurement of why a player is good or not. Let's make a comparison here between Cristiano Ronaldo and Andy Carroll. Ronaldo, despite his age, is still a player with tremendous speed and physical strength combined with his tall stature, a player who is elite as a finisher, being able to score goals either in headers or using his feet. Ronaldo can be used in more than one position. He can play as a center forward to use their size and efficiency in the box, or as a winger, especially as a left winger, being able to cut inside and use their elite right foot to score goals. Andy Carroll is a totally different player, being a tall player with a lot of strength. Carroll is a classic center forward, one of those who plays well centralized, being a reference in the attack. Carroll is elite in heading ability, probably one of the best players of the last decade in aerial duels. Carroll is difficult to lose in an aerial duel, being even praised by former footballers and coaches as the best in the world at heading a football. Carroll, unlike Ronaldo, doesn't have the technique and speed enough to play in other offensive roles, limiting him to just playing as a center forward, which thanks to his physique, can offer the best of his football. This was a basic analysis of the 2 players, but it was easy to know the characteristics of both and how they could tactically help a team. The same thing is when we can see the skills that a player in Sokker Manager. Those skills is an analysis of how it is this player and what positions he can play in and etc. Obviously, in the end, you decide this after analyzing the team you have. So not being able to see the skills of the players who are in the junior school is something totally meaningless and out of reality, because professional clubs seek to know everything about a player before thinking about putting them on the professional team. Not to mention that it makes us confused to choose the team in the matches of the junior league because we don't know the skills, so many times we randomly make this decision. Of course, to make it fun, knowing what players' skills are like could depend on the quality of our coaches. Just as the best possible coach would let us see all the skills after a few weeks, other coaches wouldn't let us see the abilities correctly, but maybe something close or some skill missing and etc. But that would be way better and more realistic. And also, releasing where we want our scouts to look for players, instead of being something random about being able to get players from other countries, letting you decide where you want to get players to be professionals, just like clubs do in real life, with scouts in specific places in the world, because they know that these are the places where they have the most talent available to become professionals. Number 5. Second clubs. This is already something that has been discussed in the past, and I think it would be a good idea for users who are tired of just using their club and looking for an additional challenge to be able to create second clubs, but it wouldn't be just any club, it would be a second club. Like in Spain that there is a second clubs from Barcelona and Real Madrid, creating a second club would be a good option for these users to seek new challenges. Obviously, to make this happen, it would be good to put rules to create a second club. For example, it would be necessary to pay a certain amount, for example, a value of 10 million euros, to create a second club. That club would have its own expenses and you could put players from your club in the second club without needing a transfer. Obviously, restrictions would be important for this. Something to avoid certain cheating would be maybe just letting players who came from junior schools go to second club with a limitation that only players up to 21 to 23 years old can go. For example, second clubs cannot be in the same division as the main club as it is done in real life. So if the main club is in the first division, the second club has to participate in the second division, even if it was the champion of the second division in the previous season. Well, 5 things Sokker Manager needs to focus on to make a better game. What did you think of these ideas? Did you like it? Do not you agree? I want to know your opinion. Comment your opinion on the video. Also tell us what your ideas would be to make soccer a better game. Thank you all and let's go.